Judging stand, are you ready? Announcer's ready.
What's wrong?
That must mean the riders are ready.
For a while now, I've been playing with the idea of doing a video on the effects of aging on the various components of VO2max. Just playing with the idea. All of a sudden became more motivated after the performance I did in this last Criterium. Hey, cycling community, this is Steve, Grusis Cycling Greek. We all know that VO2max is a maximum uptake of oxygen by the muscles. So let's talk about the components that make up VO2max. First thing that has to happen is you got to get the oxygen to the bloodstream. So we're talking about the diaphragm, we're talking about lungs, and more specifically about the surface area inside the lungs. Next comes the blood being able to grab onto the oxygen. Now we're talking hemoglobin. Next comes getting the oxygenated blood to the muscles. Now we're talking the heart. More specifically, we're talking about how strong it can beat, the thickness of the left ventricle wall, and how fast it can beat, your maximum heart rate. Once the oxygenated blood gets to the muscles need to be able to grab it and use it. So now it's mitochondria and the existence of the muscle cells themselves. So how does aging affect each of these components? Well, let's start at the beginning again. The lungs mature and reach their functional peaks somewhere between your 18th and your 25th birthday. And that function remains pretty constant until around your 35th birthday, which thereafter there's a gradual decline. And that's manifested by a progressive loss in the alveolar surface, the decrease in dilation of the air spaces, mucociliary clearance is decreased. That's a tongue twister. Next, you have the transport mechanism for the oxygen, the hemoglobin. From what I read, I couldn't see any age-related problems with the amount of hemoglobin that you have. The closest thing that I came up with, the closest thing that I saw rather, is that there is a low-level inflammation that happens with aging, and so that may have effect on the production of hemoglobin. That I'm not quite sure about. But when you go to the heart, so what you have there is a decrease in your maximum heart rate. So when I was much younger cycling Greek, my heart rate was, I reached 202 beats per minute. Now that I'm 69, based on an earlier performance this year, my maximum is 164. So the body has this mechanism to protect itself, because you don't want somebody doing 200 beats per minute on a regular basis when they're 80 years old, that it will increase the minimum interval between each beat as you age. That means the oxygen is not getting as fast to the muscles. So now, the last part, when it gets to the muscles, you know the adage that when you don't use it, you lose it? Well, that happens when you're younger, and that comes in the form of atrophy. However, when you're older, especially much older, then you go to sarcopenia, actual muscle loss. Less muscles to take up that oxygen. Okay, so given all that information, let's go look and see how I did at the Sand City Criterium last week.
Good morning once again, everybody.
Even though this course plays into many of my weaknesses, I love this course. Last time I did it was 2 years ago during the district championships. Now it was the same setup as we have today. It was 60 plus, 65 plus racing together, picked separately. Actually, 2 years ago they also had the 70 plus racing with us. I bronzed my age group with a third place. I was 67 back then. Today, I'm 69. So why is this course challenging to me? It has 10 turns, a steep climb, and a small but very strong field. That is Eric Salander in front of me. He decided to take the lead on the first lap just to get an idea of the best lines to take and to get one last little warm-up of his legs. And here's that short, steep climb. I remember it being easier 2 years ago. He has two teammates here, Shin Omeda and Tim Davis. Tim is a multiple district champion. But the fun with that doesn't stop there. We also have current and past national masters champions. Like I said, this is a fast group. With this being my last race of my gold month, I had a lot of confidence coming into this race, but right about this point, all that confidence just went away. I was having such a hard time. Even though this is early in the race, no one wants Eric to get away. He's got two good sprinters on his team. I float back a bit just to catch my breath a little. Now people are not only watching Penn Bello, but they're also watching Clean Power. Because on that team, there's two people there. One's an excellent sprinter and the other one's an excellent time trialer. And we also have two other very strong sprinters. So pretty much everyone's watching everybody except me. Now, one of the things I forgot to mention when I was speaking earlier about VO2max and aging is with the heart. Sometimes a small leak can happen in the valve. I know that because the last time I went to the heart doctor, he said, "You have a small leak." And I thought, oh brother, He then said, we'll just keep an eye on it for now. It's now a few laps later, we are still lined out, and I have since dropped to the back. Well, toward the back. Frank's behind me, and I assure you that while I'm sucking pond water with a straw, he's not. He's just back there staying connected enough so he can pick his own line. Earlier I spoke about the 65 plus field, but what about the 60 plus field? It is nothing but strong, led by Jerome Nadell, who you've probably seen at the El Viso Crit videos giving NorCal Cycling a run for his money. In my sucking pond water with a straw situation, I soon lose contact with the group. I then start to think, I drove all this way, I spent all this money, I'm going to see if I can stay away from these guys for the rest of the race. Well, of course I couldn't. And now we jump to 8 laps to go, where Eric Salander, who just initiated a solo breakaway, comes past me. This is an excellent move for a number of reasons. Remember, he has 2 teammates who are both sprinters, one of them being multiple district champion Tim Davis. We also have Clark Rasmussen, Larry Nolan, and Tom McCullough, also very, very strong sprinters. They also know if either of them do significant work to bring back Eric, it's going to cost them energy and give their competition a free ride. So now starts the game of chicken. Actually, Clark has a teammate, Frank Winters, who's right in front of me. I drifted to the back just so I keep out of everybody's way since I'm lapped. He's the time trial specialist, if you recall. He'd be the perfect person to go to the front and bring Eric back. However, we don't know how he's feeling. It could be that his body's not made for a 10-corner course like mine isn't. While I am 69, Frank is 68. And other than Tim, everyone else is 65 and 66. A 1-year difference in the 65 pluses is much, much greater than a 1-year difference in the 35 pluses. What you're looking at right now is one of the rare moments in this race where we bunched up. That's because, as I said earlier, we're playing chicken. It is now a couple laps later with 6 to go. Eric has a nice gap. Finally, somebody blinked. Now we see Larry Nolan in the Stars and Stripes on the left getting ready to make a move, and Frank recognized that and got right on his wheel. Now we're off to the races. At this point, I'm hoping, since we're in our final laps, that my body's kind of warmed up and so that I can take the speed that's going to be happening. Earlier I mentioned that the sprinters and the 65s were basically playing chicken. Now what were the 60s doing all this time? They didn't have to do anything. They didn't have a rider in the break. They'd love to win the overall, but their main focus is the 60 plus. So all they had to do was wait. As you can tell, my legs were getting closer to their demise because of that climb. For a few seconds I thought, I'll catch them right after the descent. Then just after the descent I thought, they'll bunch up soon, I'll catch them then. Eric was caught with 3 or 4 laps to go, so he was off for about 4 plus laps. While I'd love to show you the finish, obviously I can't. Clark Rasmussen won the sprint, followed by Larry Nolan. Eric's 2 teammates, Tim and Shin, came in next, and then the last spot on the podium was Tom McCullough, who is the race organizer. That is an amazing feat on the course itself, because I organized races for 8 years and I never raced any many races because it just took too much energy for me to do that. Kudos to Tom for doing that and for putting on this race. Great course. Alright, hope you enjoyed this video and you got something out of it. As always, remember, comment, like, subscribe. The Cycling Greek.